All right, guys, I'm going to do a quick review of the mock draft we just did. Think we had Zach and Aki, Lewis, myself, and Waldrop all in here on the mock draft, so it's pretty fun. Got to pick Tim Tebow down here. Let's see, yeah, right here, Tim Tebow, Team 11. Good job. So I just want to go through and look at some of the teams and give some of my thoughts, and you guys can do what you will with it. So I want to pick a couple computer teams to look at, and then we can look at what actual people did in this draft. So let's look at team one just for the heck of it. So team one, they draft Jonathan Taylor, so they have a strong running back, strong young running back, and then they go 5 wide receivers in a row, which is a lot, but it is a strategy. So now you're kind of punting running back. They eventually grab Pat Freiermuth, which I really like, and Deshaun Watson could be a top 5 quarterback this year if he actually plays, but that's yet to be determined. So that's a high upside pick. So this team, to me, looks like one that's set up for the future. Maybe Justin Fields down here comes into play and is really good in a year or two. But you got guys like T. Higgins, Terry McLaurin. I think Jamison Williams has a lot of potential. You're hoping to draft your core right now, and maybe you're not winning this year because you don't have that other running back or enough running backs on the team to maybe win a championship. But you do have some good players on here. Terry McLaurin's never been anything more than a wide receiver 2, high end wide receiver 2. Mike Evans could give you low end wide receiver 1. Really, Jonathan Taylor's the main source of points. T. Higgins could be a really solid wide receiver 1 this year. But you're not not looking at a lot of potential top 14 finishes, I don't think, with this group. Let's move on to let's pick another team that drafted a lot of running backs. Let's in opposite. Let's look at team 5 really fast. So they went Najee, Aaron Jones, Zeke, and they also got Herbert, Dalton Schultz, and then filled out their wide receiver room with Cooks and Alan Lazard. Mechie, unfortunately, has leukemia, so probably wouldn't draft him in the 8th round there, but he won't play for a while. But looking at this team, this is more of a win now team, right? They went high on running backs, got older receivers, got a really strong quarterback, and probably a tight end that could finish top 5. I think Dalton Schultz had a really good season last season. Look, here it says the number 3 wide receiver in standard and PPR. So it's possible that this team, maybe it has a couple fringe wide receiver 2s, but they're starting, some really solid running backs. I mean, Aaron Jones and Zeke are going to score a lot of points this year, likely. Cook is kind of an interesting pick here. James Cook. I mean, I guess if you believe in him, you could pick him, but I would have rather have liked them to pick somebody like Darnell Mooney or Mike Williams, or Clyde Edwards-Helaire or Cortland Sutton. Juju, Allen Robinson, any of those guys I would like better than James Cook, just because this build kind of looks like they're trying to win this year. When you pick guys like Aaron Jones and Zeke on your team, and you have Najee, it's like, well, you're pretty close to winning. And I think they made some solid picks later with Cooks and Brandon Cooks and Alan Lazard, but the James Cook pick to me feels like you're picking a rookie and you're hoping that they're a big deal. I mean, rookies are in general, if they have like a wide receiver 3 season or a running back 3 season, and I'm saying like a a season in the they finish top 35 or something like that. Like that's a good season for a rookie, but that's not going to win you a championship. Like maybe that proves they're going to be good in future years, but and with running backs, anything could happen. Like Buffalo could just have him out there, and he could be like the best thing ever, but Buffalo hasn't proven to be a great place for running backs lately. So it's really a big projection pick, and you'd rather just take the points that are going to be there. Like Mooney, he's going to have a million targets. Rashad Bateman's going to have. I even skipped over Bateman. He's going to have a million targets. Mike Williams is going to. He had a huge season. Look at this. You could have picked the wide receiver number 9 from last year, and whether you believe that or not, at least he did that, and you could have that scoring on your team. I would like Team 5 a lot better if they skipped that James Cook pick, but everything else makes sense. So let's go on to Zach, and let's look at what Zach did. So Zach, he goes Debo first. I mean, Debo had a crazy season last year, wide receiver 2, and Chubb. So Chubb is on the older side. He is 26 years old, probably got a couple good seasons left in the tank. I've got Kyler, just signed on his contract. Drake London. Okay, so now we got a rookie pick, and anything could happen. Atlanta's offense is probably going to be completely terrible this year, but he could end up being the best wide receiver in the class. Who knows? TJ Hawkinson, a young tight end, good scoring there this year. I mean, Detroit, who knows? Their offense might take a step forward, so he could be a top 10 option. So far, I'm not seeing a lot of surefire top 10 options on this team. Like Debo could just repeat and be completely amazing, but he could also have a not top 5 season, and then you're a bit in trouble with this group. Like Chubb, if he doesn't have Watson, is he going to be putting up running back top 10 running back numbers? Maybe not. So what are we looking at in terms of strategy here? Well, Debo's 26. He's going to still have a bunch of seasons under before he starts losing production. So we could be going for like we secured our quarterback with Kyler Murray here. We've got Drake London, who could end up being a wide receiver 1 eventually, especially if the Falcons drafted quarterback next year. We were projecting things like that, right? Hawkinson is young, so got some young pieces on your team mixed with some older pieces. The strategy isn't obvious to me about like if you're trying to win this year or not. Like if you were trying to win this year, maybe Cooper Kupp would have made more sense with your top pick, or maybe it's just me with Debo. Debo's probably going to repeat and be amazing, but instead of Chubb, you could go like Kelsey or Aaron Jones. You could go Kamara unless you're worried about the suspension. The first 2 picks really aren't the problem, though. It's like, what's the strategy after those picks? And it's kind of all over the place. We've got Chase Claypool, who could turn into something awesome. Tony Pollard, maybe, especially if Zeke gets hurt. But the running back situation looks kind of grim to me. And the wide receiver situation could be really, really good. It could be bad. So, I mean, that's anything could happen with these players. I really like the Hawkinson pick. I think getting Murray at your 3rd round wasn't too bad. You maybe could have gotten a quarterback later and gotten like an Aaron Jones with that pick, and competed now more. But you've locked up some good pieces for a while, like Kyler, Drake London, Hawkinson, for sure, part of your core for a long time. All right, so we'll move on to Akey. Akey went a lot of running backs early, so we've got Swift, Barkley, James Conner, and Dillon. So since we have 2 flexes in this league. He's going to be able to start all those players, so that's going to give him a lot of solid points. And then, you could definitely see James Conner putting up a top 10 season. Obviously he could get hurt, like sometimes does, but that's the type of pick you make if you're trying to win now, right? And so Akey secured a quarterback, one of those top quarterbacks, Josh Allen. He's set up for many, many years with Josh Allen. DeAndre Swift, Barkley, and Dillon are younger running backs. So they could be around for a while. And then once you kind of sacrifice your first 5 rounds for those players, your wide receivers that you have left over aren't as good. But I think Akey did a good job getting some value with Allen Robinson and Gabe Davis. His tight end situation looks mega rough, but Cole Kmet, depending on what you think, he could turn into something good. I mean, he's probably the third option on that Bears offense, but to me, third option on the Bears doesn't sound that appealing this year. He's young though, so like he's 23, so he really could be a really solid, maybe top 12 tight end for several years. So I like that pick. I like the Spiller pick as well. I mean, overall, it looks like Iggy set up to win this year, in my opinion. And he didn't get too caught up in like the dynasty. I got to have these young players. He's probably got a window of a couple years with this core, right? Because after a couple years, probably Saquon is losing steam. James Conner is definitely out of the picture. A-Rob is probably out of the picture, but Gabe Davis and who knows, maybe some of these other wide receivers could pop for him. All right, so looking at Lewis's team, he goes Eckler first, and then a lot of wide receivers and Joe Burrow. So again, locks up that QB pretty early. Joe Burrow is obviously really good, so makes a lot of sense. Eckler's an older running back, so are we trying to compete now or not? But there's a lot of value in having that kind of PPR god Eckler. So he went with Diggs, Judy, Cooper, and Hopkins. So I don't think Diggs, Cooper, and Hopkins have like a huge window with their career. I don't think they're playing for too many more years. So this team is probably trying to win soon. Doesn't necessarily have to win this year, but I would think you'd probably want to win at least in the next couple years with this core, or else Diggs and Hopkins and Cooper are going to be pretty irrelevant. Also got Goddard in the 7th, which is pretty good value. The running back situation, that second running back, is looking pretty rough, but I mean, overall, maybe Rashad White takes that role from Leonard Fournette at some point. Maybe, who knows? I think Fournette's going to be almost a surefire RB1 this year. So Rashad Penny also could be pretty good, depending on how this team does. You would think like mid-season, if things are looking pretty good for this team, maybe Watson's playing and Hopkins is back and looks good. Like you maybe want to trade one of your picks for a running back to compete in the playoffs. Because it looks like most of these starters they have the potential to be top 12 options this year, something like that, top 10 options. Especially if the Broncos are amazing with Jerry Jeudy. But I wouldn't call this team super young, right? I don't. Judy's a young player. Rashad White, Rashad Penny are Pierce, but the stud players on this team are older. So, all right. Well, let's look at my team. So just picking players I like here. Not sure. We'll talk what my grand strategy is, but I like Kyle Pitts. I feel like he's going to be good for a long time and be the main focal point of that offense. Go with Breece Hall next. So in this case, it's kind of an interesting point about running backs. Like You don't want to get running backs all figured out until you're ready to compete, is how people approach strategy in Dynasty. So in my mind, with this Brees Hall pick, I've got a lot of time. He's a rookie, right? I mean, he's 21, so got a lot of time. Hopefully, he'll be as amazing as people think. But this team, when I'm drafting Pitts and Hall, I'm signaling I'm not winning this year. That's, I could have picked Derrick Henry, I could have picked Dalvin Cook, could have picked Devontae Adams, Chubb, Kamara. Those guys are going to score more points likely than Brees Hall, and maybe Kyle Pitts too. So this team is clearly built for later years. And then I go ahead and add on to that with Waddle. The Waddle pick is definitely long term. I think he's gonna be a beast. The Godwin pick, he's a little older. I mean, he's 26, but he'll be good for several years. And I just think he's undervalued at that spot. And then just more wide receivers. I'm not trying to fill out my running back room, not trying to force it or anything. Just picking players that I like, that I think are going to have good value, with Devontae Smith and Elijah Moore. What got interesting for me was in the 7th round. I feel like if I had this pick back, I might not go with Russell Wilson. But he fell so far, and I feel like he's going to be a pretty strong quarterback. And that was my rationale. I could have gone with Kareem Hunt or Damian Harris and try to fill out my running back room and then grab a quarterback later, if I thought it was time for my team to compete. But in my mind, my team, well, that's, yeah. I mean, I'm just really punting on running back because, like, you look at the running backs that go after that, it's Miles Sanders, and then it's like, okay, Devin Singletary, Cordero Patterson, maybe something. I mean, my running back two situation, my second running back situation, is very similar to Lewis in that I don't have a player there. Like, I'm clearly not. My team's not ready, and that's okay. So Russell Wilson, maybe I trade him midseason if he's playing really well and get some picks and really try to get my running backs more chances at running backs. But later on, I went with Trevor Lawrence to kind of cover that. That makes sense. Hopefully, Lawrence grows into the quarterback I need in a year or two when my team's really ready to compete. But and then I took some shots on some running backs and then threw it on auto pick. But Khalil Herbert, Brian Robinson. You'll notice I'm not talking too much about the later part of the draft. I mean, I went on auto pick at one point, I think, maybe the 13th round. Not going to analyze these picks after a little while. But you really should just be using them as dart throws for different positions you think you're weak at, or guys who you just feel like have slipped too far. I'm happy about my wide receiver room. Obviously, ecstatic to get Kyle Pitts. But this team could score like very poorly this year, right? Very poorly. I mean, do I have a top 10 running back? Maybe not with Brees Hall. He plays for the Jets. Do I have a top 10 receiver this year? Maybe Chris Godwin. I don't know. Hard to say. But those are all just talented players that I like. And I'm picking talent over situation right now because maybe the situation changes and all these guys have different quarterbacks in a year. You have no idea. Um, so I could have drafted one of the worst teams here. It's all based on projection of talent, in my opinion here. But that's my plan, is to have a young team and hopefully compete in a year or two. All right, so now let's look at Waldrop's. So he goes for the surefire thing in Derrick Henry and Patrick Mahomes. So he's ready to compete right here, right now. That's what he's telling us. And he's got Mahomes locked up for many years. Maybe Henry only plays for another year or two. He's got Tyreek Hill, who is going to score a lot of points this year. Darren Waller. Marquise Brown is going to be featured this year. So then after that, he's definitely got a lot of potential for, he's got a QB1. When I say QB1, I mean like top 14 QB. I mean, Mahomes is probably QB number one, right? So he gives you a big points advantage. Derrick Henry gives you a big points advantage. And then you've got Tyreek Hill giving you probably a top 10 wide receiver. Who knows how Miami will turn out? There's a lot of question marks there, but could be really, really good for him. And Waller should be like the third best or tight end or fourth best tight end, on the year. So got a lot of advantages. His running back 2 situation is rough with Chase Edmonds and James Robinson. So I don't love that, but maybe he could trade a pick this year since he's trying to compete. Maybe trade his 2023 first to somebody to get who knows, like a Josh Jacobs or David Montgomery or Antonio Gibson, Leonard Fournette. Fournette would be an excellent pick for Waldrop to go after with this team. Like, sell your 2023 first. That could probably get you more than Fournette, honestly, because he's older. But if you're trying to win, that would be like a really great strategy. His wide receiver room really. I'm not high on Kadarius Toney, but I think Hollywood's good. I think Hill is good, and then Adam Thielen ought to score points as long as he's healthy. So that's a good flex play to have. I think that second flex will be interesting for him. Like, his second running back, he's probably got to trade a pick to get going, and then what's his other flex play after that? That's going to be tough, but no team's going to be perfect in a 14-team league, and he picked a tight end and a quarterback early, so he's giving up those flex spots. Whenever you draft those guys early, you're giving up your points advantage and your flex spots, or in Waldrop's case, even his running back 2 spot. So let's say he drafted Mahomes later and picked Dalvin Cook instead, and later got Russell Wilson instead of Kadarius Toney. Like, I think I would like that team a lot better. Maybe, go Derrick Henry, Dalvin Cook, and then Hill, Waller, Hollywood, Russell Wilson. I think that team's good. Now, he doesn't have the whole dynasty aspect of a quarterback locked up forever. I mean, Russell Wilson's pretty old, right? He's 33. He's got 10 years of experience. But he's at least got a really good shot at winning. And that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to peak at the right time and win. And I think that's key here when you're thinking about your startup. So hopefully this was helpful. Let me know if you got questions about the draft, but that was super fun, and I'm glad we did that.